Hello, everyone. As always, I am Tessa, and I am joined by the amazing, accomplished, doing so much in our community. It takes my heart away, my breath away. I don't know what the idiom is, but it's amazing. Sigh.
Hi, Tessa. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I hope you know how I wouldn't be doing any of this without you. So thank you for being
Same.
my support, my inspiration, my things I can't even explain. So you're my uplift.
You are mine too. Like it's been a week, and I get to hear Sai's voice on Saturday, and it's just going to fill me with so much love and joy, and feeling like all the awful stuff happening in the world is just going to be okay. Like
That's
we're
right.
here, we can do it, and we're going to make it better.
Yeah, we got each other. We got
We
each other.
do.
Yes. So what do you want to
And
talk about today?
well, first, apologies if we hear my dogs barking. We're having quite the rain in Austin, and my pugs seem to think it's an attack on the house. So, living a, 1980s thriller movie here. I was thinking about, because I have noticed it happening in my life, the things that steal our peace
Mm.
or
Mhm.
take up space in our brains rent free or take up space in our hearts rent free. Like, no, I think even the most well adjusted of us at times have a hard time keeping it out. And we know we should keep it out, but it gets in there and sometimes it can just wedge in there and it's just demoralizing. I think it's the best way to say it at times.
Yeah. And in our bodies, you were saying in our
Oh,
heads, in our minds, in our
yeah.
hearts, and in our bodies. Like that, I feel like it's such a huge thing that we have. Um, I think, the everyone can relate, I guess, is what I'm guessing, to this severing that's been happening, on an individual level, but very much on the collective level, right? Of just separating our minds, our brains, our intellect from our embodied experience, right?
Absolutely. Like, I think about these influencers, especially influencers about either psychology or community, and they're criticized because of the way they look, though they're doing all this great work. And I'm like, wow, are we that one dimensional? But sometimes
Mm,
they'll post like comments they get, and I'm like, how do you survive on a daily
mm,
basis if you're getting thousands of these comments a day? It's just, is it that those people are also suffering, so they feel as though they're just going to hurt others because they're hurt? It's it's a
mhm,
lot. It's
mhm,
it's our collective mental health in so many different stages and how it
mm.
impacts each other, and how do we navigate through it when we all can accept that it's never going to be perfect,
Yeah,
but it shouldn't be causing so many people so much pain and hardship.
our collective mental health. It's so powerful. Yeah, I've been thinking about that one a lot for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not only like our small communities and our families and
Mhm.
our chosen families, but our larger communities. And for those of us who live in Austin, we can feel safe, but expanding beyond our city limits, it's like, don't know. How safe are we?
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure about that anymore.
I am not either.
Yeah, I wish that everyone could feel safe in Austin. That would be a dream come true.
Yeah.
Um, but the collective mental health piece I feel like is such a important thing for us to just reflect on because we've talked about this many times, but we're in such an individualistic society, right?
Yes.
And the approach, the story that we're told about this country is that, watch out for yourself, do what you got to do to get where you need to get to, which is always about money. And,
Yeah.
basically forget everyone else. Like, I mean, we're literally encouraged to just, focus on us and at the detriment of caring about anybody else, right? And it's a nuanced situation where it's like boundaries are so important for you to
Yes.
maintain your mental health, so that you can be a part of this larger collective mental health. I love that framing too. of,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't just begin and end with the individual, right? Like there are important things
Yeah.
for you to do as an individual, but the individuals are what makes up the collective, right? And
Yes.
so, for example, if you want to make change in the world and you want to see a society that's better than it is now, um, I think some of the most important work that you can be doing is individual work in a way, right? Like understanding where your hurt is coming from, understanding what you need to do to embody, to heal, to stop seeking affirmation from external forces, right? So that you can not just contribute, but you can inspire, right? Like you can inspire other people and show them the path to healing for maybe for themselves. And so much of the pain that is caused by people we know is caused by their own suffering that we just don't,
Yeah.
they don't know how to express another way, and they think that this is going to alleviate their suffering somehow by hurting others. And we know it doesn't. It actually just keeps feeding the beast, basically, right?
Oh
But,
yeah. I'm a
but,
living, breathing example of that this week. Yes.
oh, share, please share. If you
Well,
feel comfortable, of course.
I do. I have always had a challenging relationship with
Hmm.
my, family from childhood, parents and sibling,
Hmm.
and blew up this week with my
Mm.
brother who likes to take out his frustration on
Hmm.
me. My parents have refused to answer his calls, which, A plus parenting there. Right? The kid's in need. I say kid, but he's like over the age of 40. So, but, never was given the tools to regulate his emotions or process his emotions or understanding the impact of his emotions. And
Hmm.
when I escaped and found like this unconditional love that I have in my life, I started understanding it, understanding how to process and talk about emotions. And he has not had that
Mm.
gift, and that leads to a lot of self-destructive behavior, and then trying to destruct others, namely me, at the same time.
Hmm.
And he like just totally unleashed last night, the night before, yeah, 2 days ago, and it was just awful, and
Mm.
it stole my peace, right?
Hmm.
I want him to heal, and I want him to be the good person that I know is in there,
Hmm.
but it's not being highlighted right now. And I had just, I needed a clear boundary because I realized that his destructive behavior was stealing my peace because I was unable to just let some of the really nasty things that he would say go.
Mm.
And frustration with my parents, mentally I'm like, you broke him, you should fix him.
It's your mess. Yeah. So
And, and
how did you respond, and how did you even, you
I
know?
said I wasn't going to
Hmm.
play his game.
Hmm.
And if he wanted to have an adult conversation where we treat each other with respect, I am open to that. But
Mm.
otherwise, please contact me when you have the ability to do that, which then
Mm.
just led to more attacks because why would I think I'm better than him? Like, wow, this is not a judgment statement. It's just let's treat people with respect. And then I tried to explain it to my parents so that they could be the people to get him help since his wife refuses to, because
Mm.
there's a lot of like alcohol issues going on too.
Mhm.
And the wife was like, "Oh no, he's fine." And my parents were like, "No, we just don't talk to him." Like that's not, no.
Mm.
He needs help. These are
Yeah.
cries for help.
Yes.
He has had trauma. He's experiencing trauma, and somebody needs to help him find
Mm.
neutral people to heal him. And they were like, "No, I think you should just start ignoring his calls." I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, hard boundary. One, you don't tell people who are telling you that they have been emotionally abused that it's their problem.
Yeah.
Two, it totally ignores the issue, which is this is a scream for help for this kid. And I don't know, he won't listen to me because I am, evil in his mind.
Mm.
And two, I don't know who he's going to listen to. And granted, everybody has to come to a point of healing on their own volition. But
Mhm.
someone, I just want someone to get through so he's healed before it turns into a bigger problem for his health. and a bigger problem for the community, right? Like I don't,
Yeah.
you never know where the line is going to be.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, see, like even that, that approach of, is it your responsibility or not?
Yeah, it's
And
big.
yes, and then I also noticed how like you were able in that to put your ego aside as well, right? Like this person is not being kind to you or making it easy for you to want to help them, obviously,
Right.
but you're also like, oh, it's not about me. I just need him to get this help, and I hope that we can find somebody who can break through to him. It's not going to be me, obviously, but like
Yeah.
just having that like self-awareness, and see, that's what I'm talking about in terms of, if you are protecting your peace and you are doing your healing and you are, keeping yourself centered and grounded and keeping your ego in check, like it has such beautiful positive impacts on the community. Like,
It does. And I will admit that during these like
mhm,
lengthy times with
mhm,
interacting with him, I did say, what you are doing, you are being mean. This
mhm,
is very mean. You
mhm,
are not being nice.
yeah,
I probably used some explicit words in there, hoping that eventually it would get in. But
mhm,
I mean, I think it's also important that when you are experiencing this from somebody or a group of people, you have to, I think, identify
yeah,
their behavior and how it feels to you and
mhm.
express it because perhaps they don't understand. Perhaps they think what they're saying is helpful information.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% believe that you have to tell people how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody is in your head, and that's another interesting thing, is that that's another way that our peace is stolen a lot, actually, is by
Oh,
us having expectations about what other people should know or what they should think or how they should interpret our actions. Like, I mean, we know, all of us know somebody who is, their MO is passive aggressiveness, right? Like
oh
everybody
yeah.
knows that. And so it's like, if you think about that person thinks that you should be picking up on their hints, that you should be responding to the way that they're trying to manipulate you. And if you're
Yeah.
not responding the way that they want you to, they get angry and frustrated, right? And so even that, it's like, that's how your peace can be disturbed, is by, first of all, even this is a little bit more of a complex situation, but it really like impacts us so much. I think so many of us are oftentimes like moving and acting in ways that we think are going to please other people, right?
Yeah.
And when we do that, we're literally telling ourselves that the thing that's important to us, or the actions or behaviors that are important to us or valuable to us, they don't matter.
And think of all the like signals we get from society, right? Like
Mhm.
boys will be boys, or you shouldn't speak up, or just let them get it out, or
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
don't ruffle their feathers.
Don't rock the boat.
Yes.
Um
And it's especially, I think, imposed upon women, people of color, the queer community, immigrants. Like you're not supposed to say the things that you should be saying to be treated like a basic, decent human
Yeah,
being.
it's dehumanizing, right?
Yeah.
It's dehumanizing. And I can't remember where I read or heard this. I can't remember now. I wish I could give credit, but somebody laid out something that was like, in a book maybe, imagine there's a society where there are human beings and their job is to be their beings.
Shocking.
and then, and then there's this other, race, or this other group of people, really, who are not human beings. They're, I can't remember what it was exactly, but like human servers or something like that, where it was like their job is to serve the human beings. And the punchline was basically like, this is the mix between socialization of men and women. Like, men are taught to be, and women are taught to serve. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's like an overgeneralization that could be applied to a lot of other folks in
Yeah.
society, right? And
Hmm.
so that I always think of that, because I always just, so like, whenever I find myself like bending to other people's will, I just think, am I a human being? Or am I a human server?
That
Am I
is such a
being a
good
being?
question to ask, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Because I think back to the individual and the collective,
Hmm.
unless we are our highest and best selves and serving ourselves, we can't be a good part of the collective either.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's so complicated.
It really is because, again, you can't like get into hyper individualism.
Yeah.
You can't expect other people to serve you entirely. Like, that's not what collectivism is. I mean, I think it's really a matter of understanding what is community,
Yeah.
what is collectivism, what is healthy relationships is what I always go down to. I mean, it's just like literally nobody has taught us what a healthy relationship is. And so I would love to just think about that for a little bit, because when we talk about what's stealing our peace, I think it's always, for me anyways, toxic people who don't have any sense of boundaries and
Yep.
who literally don't know what a healthy relationship even is in concept, let alone in practice. And so I would love to maybe do a little exercise where we just talk about what a healthy relationship means to us. I would love to know what a healthy relationship looks like in your opinion and in your life experience.
I think a healthy relationship makes you is about how you feel in that situation. And
Mm,
I think the way you feel is reflective of like the structure that that relationship has. And the feelings that make me feel like I'm in a healthy relationship is I feel safe to be
mhm.
vulnerable and I know that I am respected and loved in
Yeah.
that moment. And I think that comes from the rules and structure of that relationship and whether or not that person, the people allow you to speak your mind, allow you to say things that may be difficult, but they don't take it as an attack on them.
Mhm.
And you can also express when you need help because we all need help at different times.
Mm.
I mean, I think those are big, broad strokes, but that's what feels good to me as a healthy relationship.
I love that, your first instinct was to couch that in feelings because, going back to just the mention of embodiment earlier, again, like there's this big severing of what we think and what we do and who we
Hmm.
are and what we feel.
Hmm.
And one thing that I've learned in my little studies have been that the language of the mind is thoughts and the language of the body is feelings. And so what I think happens when people get that severing between mind and body is that they try to think their way out of everything,
Yep.
including unhealthy relationships, right?
Yep.
They try to think their way into like I mean, it's literal just rationalization,
Yep.
right? Of just, well, this is okay because of this, and well, that's okay because he had a hard childhood, and he experienced trauma, so like he's just working that out. And if I love somebody, then like there's so many excuses and rationalizations of
Yeah.
unhealthy relationships.
Yep.
I'm really thankful, again, I've said it a million times, for my education in domestic violence, intimate partner violence, because I learned something that helped me mentally process abusive relationships, which was, someone can have all of the reasons, all of the excuses of being a toxic, abusive person, in terms of, they had a hard childhood, they had all this trauma, whatever. Um, but that doesn't excuse them from being abusive. It doesn't excuse them from bad behavior. Like it's not an excuse. And that changed my life.
Something I know that I tend to tell myself is that unless you're living in a tribe in the middle of the Amazon, you probably understand and have seen examples of good and healthy relationships
Mm,
in your life, in entertainment, in books, on radio, wherever you might find your source of entertainment.
hmm.
And so I feel as though every fully formed adult knows what they should be doing
Mm.
and can do better.
And that's what I say too. I mean, I hope that there's healthy relationships in the Amazon too for
Yes,
role modeling,
as do
but
I. Yes.
but I think when you said that this is what it makes me feel like, I feel like that's such a human thing that I am obsessed with because you know what feels good and what doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
right? And it's like you can convince yourself over and over again, but if you're connected to your body, then you can actually feel the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship. And here's the thing: unhealthy relationships, abusive relationships, they all follow the same kind of MO. And one of the biggest pieces of any kind of abusive relationship is trying to convince you that it's okay,
Yeah.
because your body, your mind, everything immediately tells you this is not okay.
Yep.
So you have to come up with the rationalization, and the abuser is most often very happy to give you all of those reasons why it's okay, right?
Yep.
And so the mental abuse to me is some of the most toxic stuff that exists, because it
Mm-hmm.
makes you believe that your abuse is okay and acceptable, right? And that you should endure it. And so for me, a healthy relationship is so much of what you said, but also feeling like I can just be 100% myself without judgment at
Yes.
any time, at any
Yes.
time. Like for someone to fully accept you, who you are, and how you even change in time, I think that's the most beautiful, loving thing possible in any relationship, familial, romantic, friendly, all of the things, like any relationship, for someone to just accept you for who you are wholly. I think that's what we all want. I think that we all just want to be able to feel like other people accept us, love us, for who we are, and that also that we can change. I think that, one of the passive aggressive things that people do is they expect you to be who you've always been.
Oh my word. No. I I really like I think she's a psychiatrist, maybe not, named Esther Pearl, who is Belgian, but now she's also based in New York. And she explained her marriage as they've had multiple marriages to the
Mm-hmm.
same person without getting divorced because people do evolve and change, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. And you
And
have to
sometimes it's
know that.
symbiotic and
Yes.
sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
okay because we do
Absolutely.
change. I mean, God forbid I would not want to be the person I was when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
figure out that like I should feel safe until way after 18, and I
Mm-hmm.
certainly didn't understand that I should be safe with my parents and sibling until I did a lot of work and I was,
Mm.
pushing 40. And then I was like, oh, so kids are supposed to feel safe.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
Did not know that.
Yeah. How would you, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's wild. And then also, like, I mean, even that, I was just talking to someone the other day about how when you grow up in an unsafe environment, it just becomes so normalized
Yeah.
in your life that you literally don't realize, like, oh, there are kids who don't, you know, hear gunshots on a regular, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's just wild. The brain is so powerful and it tries to protect you so much.
It does. Like I'm just realizing as you're talking that, I have never wanted children.
Mhm.
And I think now part of that reason was I wanted, I unconsciously wanted to break the cycle, right? And I think my fear was,
Mm.
what if I end up like them?
Mm.
And
I
I would
Yeah.
never want to do that to a kid.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. You would never though, but yeah, I completely
Yeah.
understand that. And
But
because I mean, I talk about it openly, like
yeah.
we're breaking the cycle. Like that's
Yep.
you have to like be conscious and intentional about it. It doesn't just happen.
No, and it takes work, and it is something that's almost on a daily basis, right? Like you're trying to, at least I am trying to be better on a daily basis,
Mhm.
which also involves me like rationalizing with my dogs at times, which may not be best, but I want to regulate my emotion at that moment, right? Like say they, bit my hand. I mean, not to like draw blood, but because they're trying to get my attention.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I don't want to react in a way that scares them, but I want to address what is going on with them at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's a dog. And if I'm like that intent on how my dogs are and their happiness, I can only imagine that I would have been a like helicopter parent extraordinaire. just to like, let's bubble wrap this kid in all the emotional protection as possible. But which is impossible and unrealistic, right? Because the world is as the world is, and
The
I can
world
only hope that
is,
it gets
yeah.
better, and we can only do our part to make it better because, oh, it needs some help.
But I mean, just that, like that example in itself is you saying the world is what it is, but I have a choice
And the power,
and the
right?
power to make a difference in this, being's interaction with me today, right now.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful. And I think that's part of the issue is that so many of us feel powerless, right?
Hmm.
So when we talk about what's stealing our peace, I mean, we could say the world, like the world is burning, and so many other things, the interpersonal relationships, the trying to keep up with all the things, trying to be the perfect parent, even for baby parent, like all of those things
Yeah.
can steal your peace, or um you can look at them differently in terms of, like, instead of, why is this happening to me, or why is this happening, thinking about it as, what is this trying to teach me,
Hmm.
or what can I learn from this? I feel like being a lifelong learner is the thing that actually gives me some peace around the hard stuff, right? Like understanding that, there is suffering, understanding that there are hard times, understanding that things are not always going to be perfect and bad things happen. Um, the one thing that I can at least, like, in terms of things that are challenges in our life that we can, actually do something about, at least not just pure tragedies, but all of those other things, right? Like challenging people, for example.
Yeah.
Um, that's an opportunity too, right? For you to grow and for you to learn something about yourself. Like, how do I react around challenging people? What does it say about me, right? Like the way that you reacted with your brother, like that says so much about who you are and how far you've come, right? Because I'm sure 18-year-old Tessa probably wouldn't have reacted that way to
Oh
the
no.
stimulus, right? And so that shows your growth, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be able to reflect on that and say, wow, look how far I've come and how I've changed. And maybe it even, brings up new challenges for you that might grow you, possibly. And so I try to, like, be grateful for those things in some small way, even though they're, difficult. I'm a person who, like, will is still working on and working through ruminations, right? And so um, that practice of, like, giving it a little bit of gratitude, I feel like it can really help when you have that perspective, and it can give you more peace, actually, just by taking another perspective of those challenging things that come up in your life.
And I think I rely on you. I love your focus on the personal growth. I think I tend to rely on my optimism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see the slightest sliver of good that can exist,
Mm.
right? I remember going to law school and thinking, okay, even horrific serial killers
Mm-hmm.
might be good to butterflies,
Mm.
right? And I think all those, even microscopic ripples, not saying that we should say that their behavior to society is okay, but that there is some good that can ripple through our world in everybody.
Mm.
And sometimes it takes a lot to find it, but I try to leave every interaction seeing the optimistic part of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember a good part of my sibling so that I don't just, I think it's my way of protecting my peace
Mm.
and not like
Yeah,
spiraling into all the things
absolutely.
that need to be solved.
I love that. And I mean, that's kind of the theme of our entire podcast, right? Like choose optimism even when it's hard, right? And
Right?
and and why? Like the why. I think, like there's been the whole thing of, like, oh, toxic positivity
Yes.
thing that people talk about. And what I have learned from that in general is that, there are when people talk about toxic positivity, I think that my interpretation of the whole thing is that they're talking about people who are essentially trying to gaslight you and
Yeah.
tell you that like the sky is, you know, green when it's not. Like, I mean, they're just trying to basically make you believe something that's not real. And for me, optimism is very different in that it's really hard to choose optimism in dark times, right? Like it's really hard
Hmm.
to stay with that when the challenges arise, but it's actually the most important time to embrace optimism because it's just another word for faith, really. You know, like you got to have faith. You got to have faith in humanity. You got to have some kind of hope that things
Oh
can get
yeah.
better, right? And that's what I feel when I think about that. I just think you have to choose to have hope. Otherwise, I mean, what is the point? You know, like if you have no hope, then what would you be here for? What are you doing? You know, if you don't believe things are going to get any better. So for me, like optimism, faith, and hope, like those are all words that I choose to embrace. And I find ways, you know, to get there, just like you're talking about, right? Where it's like, it's a practice, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It
It's
is.
not something that just happens because you're just this happy go lucky person who just is so, you know, what would be the word, like kind of like vacant, that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's seeing what's going on,
Yep.
accepting what's happening, and
Hmm.
also choosing to believe in the good that can come still. And that is true faith, and it's not an easy thing to have. And it takes the practice of, you know, basically challenging yourself in the hardest times to say, and what good can come, or I'm just going to believe, even sometimes, even if you can't point to something.
Hmm.
Like for me, it helps intellectually to find something. Like when you were talking about serial killers, I had the same kind of thought process where I thought, for me, when I look at serial killers, I think, how have we failed
Oh, we
them?
have.
You know,
Yeah.
like what did society do? You know, and does it excuse their behavior? Hell no, of
Yep.
course not. It's never okay ever to take someone's life like that. Like, no, doesn't excuse them whatsoever. But it makes me think like, okay, society went wrong somewhere. What
I
is
could,
happening?
I am 100% behind you. I often say society has failed them. I think society
Mhm.
failed my brother too. It's not,
Mhm.
you know, it's
Exactly.
beyond just our immediate families
Yes.
and
Yes.
our chosen families, because at some point in time, a teacher, a boss,
Mhm. Mhm.
a religious leader, somebody who had the ability to influence that person could have intervened, because I suspect these really, I don't want to say bad traits because I don't want to put a judgment statement on them, but these things that they
Unhealthy.
do,
Mhm.
unhealthy traits that impact
Mhm.
others, right? Like, I am
Mhm.
okay if people want to be unhealthy to themselves, but when that starts
I just
literally
call it
impacting,
unhealthy relationship behaviors or
yeah,
unhealthy relationship styles. Like you pick up
yes,
on these styles, which are really just habits, right?
yep,
You pick up on that from somewhere, because
yep.
it works for you. Like one of the things my incredible therapist told me one time is that we are all behaving in a way that has helped us survive to this point.
Ooh, that's powerful.
And I was like, okay, like it makes so much sense. And she's like,
Yeah,
you are a top down kind of processor because you have used your intellect to survive. And I thought,
yep.
oh, that makes 100% sense to me. Like, that's exactly what I've been doing, right? But I've only ever thought about that for other people who, like, well, it just translates, right? So, like, for
Oh
example,
yeah.
if you have someone in your family that's very aggressive or violent, even, why? Why do you think that they're like that? Because that's how they survived, probably. That's probably how they got through childhood and got through school. Like, they probably had to be that way in order to survive. And when you take that, like, perspective, it's basically like a compassionate stance. If you choose compassion when you look at somebody and try to understand them versus just judging them, then it
Hmm.
changes your entire perspective and your entire, you know, just analysis of the situation. Like with your brother, like why is he attacking you verbally? That's, you know, maybe that's what he had to do to survive in your family system. I don't know, but or
That's what he
whatever else.
experienced in our family system.
Which
Yeah.
makes sense because I mean that's
Yep.
modeling, right? Like that you,
Yep.
again, you learn it from somewhere and you
Yeah.
learn, you get to see the effects of it, and it's like if you get what you want sometimes from, modeling someone else's behavior, then you're going to keep doing it. Like it's kind of just that's how we learn, right? Monkey see, monkey do. It's a trial and error situation. And that's why I think like exposure is so important. Like people have asked me, why are you different? And I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like part of it has to do with the fact that I got the hell out of my hometown as fast as I could.
Yep. Same.
And that I exposed myself to other people and other, life experiences. And I was open minded and I wanted to learn and I wanted to see something different and I wanted to try different things. I feel like that changes you. And so being a lifelong learner, being, open and optimistic about the fact that you can change and that you can grow and that there are more things to learn out there. I feel that more now than ever, honestly. I used to think it was like, I have to learn all these things about the world. And now I'm like, I'm on a whole different, like learning about me, learning about this
Yeah.
life experience in this body, like in this spiritual sense, like all of these things are so new in a way because that's never what we're taught to focus on. We're never really taught to focus on us and our healing. We're always taught to go chase after something external. Again, mostly money.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I think the thing that I've noticed while I'm on that journey that you described is also that I've learned to protect myself in,
Mm-hmm.
in ways that I don't think a
Mm-hmm.
younger version of me would have, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of that is setting boundaries, limiting your exposure to certain people,
Yes. Yep.
especially people who can trigger you.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
we all have those people in our lives, right? There's somebody out there that can just trigger you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's, I call it setting yourself up for success.
Love that phrasing. That's perfect.
And I just feel like one of the first things we got to do if we want to, have a healthier mind, body, spirit is to literally forgive ourselves right now
Yeah.
and and preemptively forgive ourselves for putting ourselves and our health and our wellness at the center of our value system, right? Like that, I
Hmm.
think is the main thing for me, anyways, as like a recovering people pleaser.
Yes. Yes.
When you are around a lot of people who have a lot of demands, a lot of people who are trying to manipulate you, a lot of people who are using passive aggressive or abusive tactics to get you to be who they want you to be and do what they want you to do, it's very easy to become a people pleaser because that's how you survived. Again, going
Yep.
back to that, like, how did you survive? I acquiesced. I did the things
Oh,
that I
yes.
knew people wanted me to do. I was an appeaser. I was a pleaser. Like, these are the things that get you to a place where, you forget that you have any needs. So I can't remember who I was talking to one day, but they said something like, oh, yeah, I don't need anything. I don't need this or whatever. And I was like, no, no, I just said, do not be needless.
No,
You're
we
a
all
human
need
being. You
things.
have needs,
Yeah.
right? And so, that's just such a telltale sign of a people pleaser, right? And I don't even like that phrase because it makes it sound like, this is what you want to be doing.
Right.
It's truly like you have been conditioned
Oh, yes.
to appease the takers around you. And so if you're a natural good-hearted person who wants people to be happy, it's a deadly trap, right? Like you're you're game for the prey, right? And it's an easy trap to fall into, especially when you're a little baby, when you're a
Oh,
child
yeah.
who is
Hmm.
just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you want everyone to be happy around you, right? Like you're going to do whatever you can do to make them happy. And so I feel like this is one of those things, and maybe it's just because it's my personal experience and I'm, projecting, but I just see it around me so much with the people I love, probably because all the people that I love are such good, kind-hearted people that, fall into the same trap. And
Yeah.
I've struggled with a lot of the language around this. So I'm still working it out. But, when I was younger, I used to say, like, well, you're a giver. and he's a taker. And so he's just going to keep taking and taking and taking until there's nothing left, and
Right.
yeah. And I mean, that's me trying to understand like what is going on in these relationships, and now I see it a little more clearly in terms of like it's not just individual people, like just one. It's truly like a socialization of people from such a young age that they don't even realize that there's any kind of habit or practice that's been formed in them. They don't even see it for themselves. That's just what they do. That's just how they are. That's just who they are. And the thing that I want to challenge people on is that when you were a little kid, you had all kinds of needs, right? We all
Oh
did,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
We couldn't survive on our own. We needed someone to care for us. We needed attention, we needed affection, we needed love, like literally needed it. It's been proven over and over in scientific studies, like you need affection or you can
Yes.
die as a child, right? Like
Yep.
it's literal. You need these things. You were not needless as a child. And I just keep going back to like thinking about my childhood self because I think, when did it change? When did it change? Like, when did I start to think like, oh, I shouldn't have those needs. I shouldn't ask for that. I shouldn't want for that. I shouldn't bug somebody for this. I shouldn't be a burden. Like all of those little internal messages that get, pushed into you somehow, but like very, very, very subtly, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's not like a
Hmm.
ceremony where someone's like, now you will be a needless woman that serves other people, Like it doesn't happen that way.
No.
It's such a slow drip, you know? So I think about that a lot, and I think you know, the biggest thing for me has been reconnecting to my body, because if you stay in your mind, you don't need anything,
Yeah.
actually, right? You just need
Hmm.
justifications. But when you recognize yourself as a human being, again, that's here to be, um, and you start connecting to your body and start even letting yourself feel the needs that you have,
Yeah.
then when you're honest with yourself, only then can you really even hope to be honest with other people.
So as you're explaining all this, which is so important, and it touched on so many aspects of my childhood, I'm like,
Mm,
wow, okay, I feel seen.
mm,
Two, I was also thinking, people pleasing. I adapted pretty quickly as a child
mm-hmm,
from people pleasing and not asking for things, and I just use silence. And it's something I
mm,
still default to when
mm-hmm,
I don't I don't want to react because I don't want to give, in my mind, that other person power over me
mm,
by, in case they want to spark a reaction. But
mm-hmm.
I also realize that me being silent is also people pleasing, right? It's like, oh, it's passive aggressive
Mm,
people pleasing.
mm,
So if anyone else is experiencing that, know that our default to silence is just a trauma response, I'm certain, even
yeah,
though, yeah.
yeah. And again, like, how did you survive? Like, that was your survival mechanism so that it
Hmm.
didn't continue to escalate and you didn't have to deal with it. That makes sense,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And my trauma response was fight. And so I would use my intellect to tear it down, as we've discussed. And so, like, I'm going to win and you're not going to
Yeah.
beat me. And, like, this is going to end because I'm going to show you how it's going to end. Right. And so it makes sense. And that, like, just literally seeing the humanity in you, I think, is the first step in seeing the humanity in everyone else.
Yeah.
So when we talk about optimism and hope, it's really truly at the center of it. Do you have hope and faith in the human race? Honestly, like that's really what it is. Like, do you believe in humanity? And you can't really see the humanity in other people if you can't see it in yourself first, right? So I think that's really one of the biggest things that steals our peace, is the fact that like we truly don't have that central optimism or hope at our center. And I think it's probably because a little bit of us has, like, little something have enough has been, I don't want to say has been killed because it's still there, can be rekindled. It has
Hmm.
been, dampered,
Yeah.
and we can bring that back. Um, but I think the way to that, like the way out is in, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. But you go first inside, and you like just get to literally reconnect with yourself, whatever and however you can do that. And one of the challenges I've been posing to people is I've just been asking them, even my employees, I ask them, what is the thing that you do in your life that is completely immersive for you, that takes
Oh,
over and makes you feel like you're fully in your body and brings you so much joy? Like, just name that thing. And I kid you not, like most of the time when I ask people, they're just like, I don't, I don't know. I don't
what
have
have
that thing.
what brought you that joy to
Yeah.
your body this week?
Yes, exactly. Or if it's been a long time and there was nothing this week, like, go back until you find it.
Yeah.
Like, was it when you were in your 20s? Was it when you were a child? You know, like, I mean, literally, people get into this rat race and they lose who they are. Like, truly, they truly just lose who they are. I know, because I was one of them. You know,
Yeah.
I've said it before, but like, when I went back to music, I was like, oh, that's me. There I am.
Aw.
You know, like, I just felt like myself again. And that's the thing, is like, the society will push you and push you to become a money robot. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's all that capitalism wants from us, right? And so connecting to your own humanity, I think, truly is the way, not only to protect your peace, but then to also like find ways to bring compassion and understanding with other people in their struggles.
It's so interesting you say this, and especially about what brought your body
Mm,
peace and joy this week. I had a lunch this week, and I was explaining that I stood in my garden that morning for 15 minutes and watched the dew on the
mm.
asparagus plants because it was like a disco ball. It was great. It was morning sunlight. There was all these colors and prisms, and
Mm.
I was just like, oh, this is really lovely.
Nature is such a good
Yeah,
one. Oh my God.
yeah. And the look I got when I explained how much joy I had got out of just
Hmm.
standing silently in my garden, watching sunlight bounce off of dew,
Hmm.
it was like, what is wrong with you? Why weren't you, 18,000 different things why weren't you up at 5 a.m. instead of, 7 a.m.? All that. I guess the only way I can explain it is just do it Nike mentality because
Mm.
recently I've started paying attention to this little messaging in advertising,
Oh
and I
God.
realized Nike's Just Do It is so capitalism in the
Hmm.
United States,
Just do
whereas
it. I
Adidas,
could just imagine that being like such, like, from an abuser. Like, it's supposed to be
yeah,
so positive. Like, yeah, this is a positive
but
message. And
it's
I'm like,
not,
if someone told me just do it, like, I would be terrified. And like, yeah, that sounds very aggressive to me.
right? And, you know, I've been watching a lot of global football,
Mm.
and Adidas advertisement countering countering Just Do It by Nike is
Hmm.
you got this. And I'm like,
Yes.
how different and how
Yes.
powerful. And I think one of them is because there is a greater sense of community in these older countries that have a lot more history and have seen a lot more things.
Mm.
And
Yes.
I, that not having I don't want to say it's overly individualistic in the United States, but there's like these, and maybe it is just capitalism, this expectation that you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to be productive, and every
Hmm.
relationship has to be
Yeah.
transactional, and
Capitalism,
it's
totally.
yeah, and I'm just like, no,
It's the hyper individualized capitalism, I guess, is what you could say about that. Because I know that there are other countries that are obviously capitalistic, and they don't act like us. It's a
no,
cultural thing that's beyond capitalism, but
yes,
I always reference capitalism because it's like, that's the seed. You know what I mean? It's like, that was the seed that was planted, and then we just like watered that seed with like greed and individualism and just all of this, like, fuck the collective. And like, all of it was just like, it just grew from this other really gross nourishment, I guess, is what's in my
right.
mind.
When I think other countries in this world nourish individualism, but it is to be the best member of society, right? To be the best
Exactly. You
Earth
still
citizen.
Exactly. You still are operating within the collective. In the United
Yeah,
States, we said fuck the collective. Like it's
yeah,
number one and that's it. Like, like that's the nuance, right? Like capitalism on its own, just like any system really, is not evil per
correct,
se. I mean,
correct.
it's really the thing that the people do with it, right? And the
Yes,
culture. I feel like it's the culture. Our culture is toxic in that it literally
absolutely.
says that profits over people, like over and over and over again. We see
Yep,
it. They just, I mean, I say they when I mean we, like we as a culture have adopted the concept that money is more important than people. And I think that's the value system, right? Like capitalism is a economic system, but what are
yep.
the values of our culture? Those are much deeper questions. And those are things that really guide how we capitalize, how we do capitalism, right?
And I think a lot of it is accepted. I think the capitalism is accepted because there has not been a cultural identity in the United States. There are
Mm,
regional identities, but there are not a overarching cultural
I
identity.
agree with that. Yes, I agree. Because I know that, like in Mexico, for example, I'm not an
Hmm.
expert in Mexico, have not spent enough time there to speak on it truly. But one thing I read one time was that, Mexico has a similar, not the same. It's definitely not the same as the United States. It doesn't have the same history. Like our history is very bad. It's very bad. That's all I can say. But in Mexico, they have the same history of colonization, obviously, right?
Hmm.
And I think the difference in the history of slavery, which I don't know enough about, but I know is different than ours. That plays as well. But one of the things that I read that I found so interesting about Mexico is that they are similarly situated in that they have indigenous people there that were there
Hmm.
before the colonizers came. They had the colonizers that came from the same areas as the colonizers of the United States, right? They had of course people that were there from Africa and Asia, and whichever way they got there. That's the part I don't know enough about. But what I will say is that they have all of this mix of people.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if they had like the whole Ellis Island moment or not, but what I know is that there was a very conscious countrywide thing where they decided a moment where they really like embraced this idea of like, yeah, this is our history. We're indigenous. We're European. We have colonizer blood, right? We have a mix of all of these other uh, people as well, and they really embraced it as the Mexican identity,
Yeah.
as like this is who we are, like a recognition of that, right? Like as much tragedy as there was, and I mean still like there will be, I'm sure, so many people who say like, yeah, the indigenous people don't feel that way.
Right.
They're still being oppressed, and I completely understand that. But as a nation, as the nation of Mexico, right? Like they had that reckoning of like a
Hmm.
shared identity, and I think that that really does make a huge difference, because for so many, and I don't even know when that happened, so I have no idea if it happened early on, and that's what shaped it, or not. But I know in the United States, like it's never been that way. It's always
Yeah.
been the others, right? Like it's always
Hmm.
been the mainstream and the othering, and I mean, very explicitly in law for so many decades. Um, it was
Centuries.
for
Hmm.
literally centuries. It was codified in law, and of course that shapes our culture. We're only a couple hundred years old, like.
I have
So,
furniture in my house that is older than this country.
stop
I
it.
mean,
Stop
yes,
it.
like Swedish antiques that I've purchased at
Oh
auction
my
that are
gosh.
older than this country,
That's bananas. So bananas. The
right?
perspective of it all. So that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like, I completely agree with you. Like, there is a fundamental thing that's missing. Like, I often like to personify the country to think, like, if this country was a person, who would it be? Like,
A
what would they look
toddler.
like? It's like every 100 years is like 1 year.
And
So we're
and
we're two going on
to,
two.
yes, we are in our
We're in our
terrible
terrible
twos.
twos.
And I feel like it's a little boy and it's
Hmm.
Um,
Obviously,
uh,
little white boy. Like, let's be
yes,
real.
that's what I was gonna say. Yes, yes, yes,
A very
yes,
privileged, entitled little white boy. It
yes.
is what it is,
Hmm.
and so that's where I am. Where I understand that like we have so much to learn and to do together, but that key that you talked about, like having a shared identity, I think that's really key. And what's great, what's really, I was gonna say great sarcastically, but what's really wild is that the United States really puts out that PR though. Like they,
Yeah.
like other countries think that we got it all, or they did until now. Like I mean, we had the world fooled, I think, a little bit in terms of like, oh, you have this beautiful immigrant story, like a country made of immigrants and all the things. And it was never true for all of us,
Nope.
and it still
Nope.
isn't, unfortunately. But I would love to see the reality reach up to the hype. That would be amazing.
That would be so totally amazing. And I think with the right leadership in government and in corporate America, it
Mm,
can get there, right? It's my
mm.
daily concern of whether or not I should leave this country.
Yeah, no, I think we're all
And
there. Yeah.
I want to believe in the good, everybody is equal notion of the United States, but I also want that to mean that we give every person in this country some basic human decency, like the
Yes.
ability to have meals on their table and
Yes.
public education through
Yes.
university and
Yes.
housing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Income, health care, for God's sake.
Oh my God. Yes. Obviously. Yes. Including mental health care, let me know.
Please, good Lord. I mean, back to the collective mental health. I'm gonna write that down, like, because that's literally what I've been trying to say is like we as a collective are going through. I call it like societal psychosis.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, we are not in a good mental health state. Again, like this little boy, he needs a lot of help right now.
Yes. I mean, I
I'm
feel like
concerned.
I am in an abusive relationship with the United States government.
Period. Period. And we always have been. And so, like, what are we going to do about it? I mean, this episode is really important. This talk is really important to me because, protecting your peace is a part of the answer. It's not the full answer. But if we don't have whole people, right, like that are healthy and well and healed, or are healing at least, because you never really probably fully heal, right? But you're
Yeah.
healing. Um, how are we ever going to get there? I think that's the only way. Like for me, it's such a, again, it's like the individual is the collective. Thinking of it
Yeah.
from that collective perspective, it's totally that we cannot imagine a future that's going to be better unless we can imagine a better self. And
I
so, yeah.
agree completely. And I want to highlight what I'm going to call my Uplift Crush. And it's a
Mm.
company that's doing exactly this. So this this Pride season, IKEA has been hosting in-store Pride parades to welcome the community, especially in areas that they're they where people live in areas that are
Wow.
not helpful to the queer community. So they've
Wow.
decided to host in-store parades, and I think that is
That's
absolutely
amazing.
lovely. I think that is part of the mental collective, and I know that I'm highlighting someone Swedish. Surprise, surprise, surprise. But it is. I would love to see more companies do this and highlight
Well,
other
they took a
people who
very
are doing
different
good things.
approach than Target, I see.
Yes, I have been on my boycott since January
That's
of
amazing.
Target.
I think that's so wonderful. And I love, see, that's the part that I love. These are the little things that give me the faith, the optimism, the hope in humanity. They really are these little bits of examples. And thank you for
Yep.
sharing, because it's like we can doom scroll all day and we can look at
Hmm.
all of the bad things that people are doing all over the world, and we can literally depress ourselves, right?
Oh
Like that
yeah.
that's what's happening to most of, the collective mental health. Or, you know, we can also like uplift and highlight the folks that are literally thinking the other way. Like the thing I love about this is not that they went into the conversation of like, oh, should we or shouldn't we carry things that are like, Pride represent, they just were like, let's, how can we support this community as much as we can? Like they just went in the
Yeah.
entire different direction. And that's what I love is like, don't let the negativity be the framer of the entire conversation.
Yeah.
Like go to your values and say, what can we do? What impact can we have? One of the things that really made a huge difference in my life was an anti-racism training, which I think I've mentioned, that talked about being gatekeepers. And immediately, like, as a person who's been othered in 15 different ways, I literally thought, like, oh, they are the gatekeepers. These people, those other people, they have all the power, right? And they're
Yeah.
gatekeeping it from me and my family and my people and all of that, right? And the
Yeah.
wonderful thing about this anti-racism training that changed me was that it literally was like, no, you're the gatekeeper. I was like,
Oh, I
excuse
love
me?
that. I
They're
love
like, what are
that.
you gatekeeping? What your challenge is to figure out what you gatekeep, what you have power over, and to open up those gates to the people who need it most. And that changed me forever because I thought, oh, I'm a fucking attorney, actually.
Yes, you are.
I'm like, actually, I have a lot of power that I am like just wielding. I'm deciding which clients I take, I'm deciding who gets a lawyer today. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. I mean, that would have
Yep.
made such a huge difference in my life, as a
Yeah.
child or in my family's lives. And so that changed me fundamentally when I stopped thinking about like they, and started thinking, what can I do? Where do I have power? Where can I have impact? That shift in itself, I think, gives me more peace. It literally changed, like that perspective just changes my entire outlook on life in terms of what agency do I have in a world that feels like it's not going very well. So,
Well, then, in that spirit, I will mention another uplift crush that I have
yeah.
this week, which is Chef Eduardo Garcia. Think his like company or moniker is Montana Mex. He took to his Instagram account this week and highlighted chefs in his region of the United States that were providing meals for kids since kids are not getting summer meals
Mm,
now. And so these chefs have bonded together to start delivering lunches and dinners for kids.
beautiful. So
And I'm like,
beautiful.
yes, right? Like I firmly believe that these small steps from these chefs and Kia will then have this ripple effect where more people do things to just be better, to do better, to make us all better. Because
Absolutely.
I have the hope and belief that we can be a better nation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think energy, um, and just example, right? Like just again,
Yeah,
like operating out of your values is,
yeah,
when I say inspiration, I mean like someone can look at that and they are now seeing that as a reality of a possibility. So one of the things that is hardest for me is, I have visions sometimes of things the way that they can be, the way that things, should be. And it's
yeah,
hard sometimes to even explain it to people because they can't even imagine that, like it's not
yep.
something that they can really believe could be real.
Yes, because, not nice guys finish last in this country,
Exactly.
right? Like,
But then when you see it,
what?
seeing is believing for so many people.
Yes,
That's the thing. And so like when you see somebody doing good and then you realize like, oh, first of all, you didn't know that there were good people anymore. You thought everybody was terrible and everything is
mm-hmm,
terrible. But then like when
mm-hmm,
you see that, it disrupts your mindset where you're like, oh, actually, well, there are good people. They're right there. So you can't deny it, right? And then they're doing these good things despite everything else.
yep,
Wow, I guess it is possible. I wonder what I could be doing. Like, and again, like just taking it back to like the smallest thing. Like you don't own IKEA, so you can't do what
yep,
IKEA is doing, right? But
correct. But I
but
can say no to clients that I don't want to represent their interests in politics.
period, exactly. And
Yep,
I mean, you have a neighborhood, maybe you could throw a little pride parade block party or
yep,
something like that. Like
yep,
maybe you could literally just like, I don't know, talk to your, neighbor's nephew who is
yeah,
struggling with coming out or whatever. Like, I mean,
yep,
literally anything, everything you know how to Google things and other people don't.
Yep.
You know, you could
Yep.
Google resources for them.
Yep.
You could do so much. And again, it's like all of us have so many gifts, and the community is so much powerful when we work, together and we hold each other and we see each other. I think literally just seeing people is a huge thing that we're missing, right? Like we're all looking at our phones. We're all trying to learn things that are going to make us better people for money, you know.
Yeah. And you know, whatever the algorithms are spewing out all the bad stuff
Of
as
course.
opposed and
They got to
reiterating
get
the
those
lie
got to get
that
those eyeballs, I mean,
that
our attention has been monetized.
yes,
Speaking of capitalism, right? Our attention,
yeah,
all of our attention has been completely monetized. And if we were to just literally start seeing each other, that's why for me, my biggest practice, I've been trying to study, or I have been studying every day a little something from Buddhist teachings, because it teaches you how to be more present, which I think is one of the most
yep,
valuable things that you can offer any other human being.
absolutely.
It's just to literally be present. Like right now, I'm having this wonderful conversation with you. I have discovered my beautiful focuses. It's the best feature I've ever found on any kind of device. So
Yes.
putting my phone on do not disturb and, closing my door and just sitting here fully immersed in this conversation gives me so much life, and it feeds into me. Like I know that you see me and I see you, and
Yeah.
I
It's
can
the best
feel
feeling.
it's the best, right? And because
Yeah.
we crave connection, connection and community truly are everything. And remember when I told you that I started putting things on my calendar that reflect my values, like,
Yeah.
happy home, things like that, right? One of the
Yep.
things that I came up with last week was to put on my calendar, connection is everything. And I put a block
Ah,
on my calendar because I know that is true and it's one of my values. And that block on my calendar is just to reconnect with people, just to make time to intentionally connect with the people that I love most in this world. And so that's when I call people. That's when I text people. That's when I
yep.
just make plans with people or whatever. And it's intentional because I know connection is everything, is the way that I put it. I literally
Yes.
am like, everything else is just, things we got to do.
I have I have in my desire to be realistic also as well as an optimist.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
accept that social media exists and that
mhm.
we have the power to make it what it is. So I only make positive comments. And if I see something that someone has done or said that I think is great, I'm going to DM them and I'm going to say, this is fantastic. Keep doing it.
I love that because I get so many negative messages, even when you're
Yeah,
doing positive things, like people
right.
want to tear you down for whatever reason. I mean, obviously, like they have internal issues, but they're
Yeah,
unaddressed. But
clearly.
regardless, I love that you're doing that because we also like dehumanize everyone. I mean,
Yep,
especially people that have fame or money or attention or followers or
yep.
anything. And it's like these are literal human beings, except for the AI ones, of course. But I mean, all of these human beings actually have feelings.
Yes,
And I just find it really, I love that you're doing that and putting some positivity into the world because, we know that the human psyche, like, the bad stuff gets our attention, the bad stuff gets our reactions. Like it's just human nature in a lot of ways. But the fact that you're being intentional about spreading positivity in the world, like that's beautiful. And you're literally, like lending people a little bit of peace in an otherwise very unpeaceful world. So thank you for doing
and from a individual standpoint, I find happiness in being positive,
that.
right? Like
Oh
by
yeah.
saying nice things to people, I also feel good about it. But it's totally genuine that I actually like what these people are doing.
Hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
how odd that I had to clarify that. But I feel like in the United States, you have to explain that you can behave genuinely and be positive and optimistic at the same time.
Yeah, and it's not for some gain. I think that's the
Correct.
that's the big thing that like is underlying a lot of stuff is like people, even like in relationship building, it's like, you've gone to these mixers and things like
Ugh.
that where it's like, people are just trying to size each other up and see what they can get from one another or whatever. And I was I mean, I'm not judging anybody because that's exactly what I did. Years ago, I thought I just need to get all these connections. I need to get all these contacts. I need to connect with all these people. But like that word was misused because there was never real connection. There was just
Correct.
transaction. And that's the thing is like, if you mistake connection for transaction, it will leave you feeling empty because it
Yep,
is. And so
exactly.
real connection, what does that mean to you, Tessa? Like what does connection actually feel and look like to you? Like how do you know when you're really having connection versus, a transaction?
I think it's a lot like having a healthy relationship in that
Mm.
I feel good about it
Sure.
and I am hopefully making the other person feel good about it as well. Like I try to live a lot by the campground rule, right? By leave everything that you encounter and everybody that you encounter in a better place than they were before. For
Love
instance, this
it.
week I went to a small liquor store in Austin and I encountered a lot of people who were not really, who looked very angry and sad and just
Mm.
mopey. And
Oh.
so I was like, hey, how are you doing today? And then,
Mm-hmm.
as we've talked about, like, you have to provide a safe space so people say more than okay, better, great, whatever that is
Mm-hmm.
and dig a little. And I spent a few minutes with all these people, with this handful of people, just asking about their day and their life. And by the end, if I encounter them again in the store, like I got a smile out of them. And not saying that people have to smile, but I could tell that physically
Mm.
their body language showed that they went from the world is against me to hey, maybe the world isn't as evil as I thought it was.
Mm. I love that example. So such a small thing, and you can have
It is.
connection anywhere with anyone. And again, like I think that the way that you can have the only way you can really have connection is to be truly present. And so
Yes.
we have a million interactions a day, probably literally at this point, right? But just focusing on the person in front of you. Even if
Yeah.
it's like a text message, like this is why one of the
Yeah.
reasons I really love these focus things, because these features help me to focus on like one person at a time.
Yeah.
And so it helps, right? Or at least one group of people at a time, which is at least
Hmm.
that, right? But it's like if you have your coworkers writing you and your parents writing you and your siblings writing you and your kids writing you and your partner, like all at the same time, like you can't give them anything really. Like you're giving
Correct.
them a short answer of like yes, no, maybe so, like, but if you can at least like say, this is my personal time and I'm going to
Yeah.
talk to the people in my personal relationships right now, like, then you can at least, like, I feel like it's like literally laying down something that you're carrying.
Yeah.
Like there's this Buddhist story where they talk about a person who's like carrying around this huge bag of rice and somebody says, hey, why don't you put down that bag, that sack of rice, that you've been carrying for so long? And they're like, oh, I forgot I was carrying it.
Yeah.
And it's just like recognizing that you are carrying the weight of expectation, everyone's expectation,
Hmm.
availability, like, ability to be contacted at any time. Like this is such a like very real practical thing right now in our age of like accessibility, right? And
Yes.
so we have this illusion that we're connected because you can text anybody at any time, right?
Oh yeah.
But that's
I
not real
have
connection, right?
I have my phone set so I it goes on personal focus from
Hmm.
8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Love it. Yeah, you got to. You gotta carve out these spaces. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of this era is that, we've all been I don't even want to use these words because they're they're different words. We've all been made accessible to one another
Yeah.
through digital means, right?
Hmm.
But that is not good. That doesn't not a connection make, right? And so yeah, just literally challenging ourselves to be present, I think can be really help build into our peace and also like having boundaries so that you can let that other stuff go. You can just set it down. You can set those obligations down for a little bit so that you can fully embrace the person in front of you. And that's a peaceful moment for me.
It is, and I think I have tried to also extend those personal focuses to others. So you know how
Mm.
oftentimes you're like, oh, I need to tell this person something.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays you can schedule your email to be sent at a later time of day. You could also schedule your text messages to be sent at a later time of day. And that way you can relay that important information while at the same time protecting your own personal peace and protecting theirs.
Okay, you're gonna have to tell me how to do the text message one. I don't know how to do that yet, but that's amazing because that's where I think people like it's almost like compulsive now. You have a
Yeah.
thought, you got to send it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's so compulsive, like it's not even like thoughtful anymore. Just being
Yeah.
mindful of like what you're doing and literally considering people. Like when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, how considerate. Somebody thinking about somebody else and their peace.
Shocking.
It is.
Again, as we often say, it's like an act of rebellion,
Yes,
right?
it truly is because nobody does that, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just going to share one more thing about that. We want people to be considerate like Tessa. We wish the whole world was like Tessa, right? Like that would be amazing. But we know that's not our reality, right? But we
Yeah.
also still have hope and faith and optimism that in humanity that people can be more like that. And I think that they will be.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that is boundaries actually. So
Mm-hmm.
like when you said that thing about how you're considerate about when you're sending text messages or any messages, right? So lovely. And there's so many people in my life that are not like that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I know that I'm not the only one. And so, I want to challenge myself and everyone to be more considerate like you are in those terms. Like, I think that's a great practical way that we can offer more peace in the world, right? To the people that we care about. And then I also want to say that, like, practicing boundaries and expressing your boundaries to other people to protect your peace is an act of love to yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I've done it. Like I've seen, people who like literally just tell me their whole life story when I'm not even engaged in text message via text message, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, let me spend 30 minutes trying to understand what this person was even trying to tell me. And this it's just this month. Like this is what I'm saying is like I am growing every day in my, rest and healing era. And
Oh,
so
I
and I'm
love
very grateful
this.
for it. But like just this month, I had to, not had to, I got to practice setting boundaries, very clear, specific boundaries in this regard. And I let someone that I love very dearly, I let them know with all the kindness that I could, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to
Yeah.
see, 30 text messages. I don't want to see screenshots. I don't want to see this. Like, I was just very specific and like, I don't want that. And here's what I do want. If you'd like to engage with me about an issue that you're having, please text me to see when I'm available to speak with you because I would love
Yeah.
to be able to like help problem solve when I have the time and space to be present for you. And
Yeah.
there was a little defensiveness of, okay, well, I guess you don't have time for me, whatever, whatever. And I said, no,
Oh,
I said, look back at what I just wrote you. I'm telling you that I want to help you, which is, something I'm offering you. And I'm like, I want to help you and I just want to do it in this way. Can you respect that boundary? And I started using those words because I think it's important for us to show that it's okay to set boundaries. It's not something to be
yeah.
afraid of or to be ashamed of or be stigmatized. Like, it's okay and it's encouraged, right? And so, what I have found is again, like offering an example of how to do it is the thing that people really learn from and that they incorporate into their lives. Like, seeing is believing, right? Monkey see, monkey do. Like, we're all just, you know, really smart monkeys and and we really react in these social settings. And so I share that example just as a practical, again, like modeling that I hope other people will take on and assert because, as Adrienne Maree Brown said, boundaries are just the space that I need to love you and love me at the same time, right?
Now
And
what?
so it's
I
still
hope
love.
ev- I hope everybody heard what Sai just said and how important it is to have that clear communication and boundaries and explaining it in a way that is beneficial not only to yourself but to the person that you're explaining the boundary to, right? So that you
Hmm.
so clearly explain how to be open and accepting to that person while setting your boundary. But also to like those of us who struggle with setting boundaries, your point of setting focuses on your phone, that's a boundary, right? Like
Hmm.
that's a good practice boundary to have.
Digital boundaries. You got to have them.
Yeah,
If you don't have digital
absolutely.
boundaries, I know you're in the struggle because I was right there with you until I discovered. To recommend a book called Indistractable. It's a really good book that helps us understand just like such a pragmatist. I love a good like literal tip, right? And this whole book is,
Yeah,
and it's mostly about digital boundaries. It really tells you like this is how you let people know like what to expect and what not to expect and when, and like what they can and cannot do. And it's just wonderful because I feel like the more upstream you get with it, the easier it is.
it is
So
so
much
true.
easier for me to say you can contact me between this time and that time, and it has nothing to do with anyone individually. It's nothing personal. It's just literally like my schedule. It's completely like, devoid of any kind of emotional thing. It's just here it is. And you set it early as you can upstream. Down the line, I mean, people should know what to expect. You've already set
Yeah,
it. And so I think that's the ideal thing. But when you get to a place where people have already come to expect whatever, setting that boundary is a lot more challenging. And so that's why I share that example, because even though it's challenging, it's also very simple. The
it
more you
is.
can clarify and get specific with it and what you need and be unapologetic about having needs, right? Like seeing the humanity in yourself, and allowing yourself to express your humanity and have needs. That's where you get to this place where, there's no reason not to. You know that it's important.
I think Sai has given us a great wrap up of our entire conversation today, which was acknowledge your needs. Your needs are also your feelings. They are tied together, and we should, as long as we all start acknowledging what we need and how things make us feel, we can build ourselves better, and that builds our community better. I challenge all of us, like, I know I'm not perfect in it, but let's keep rebelling and make this world better because it can be better. And part of that is making sure we are our fully formed selves so that we can help others be their fully formed selves.
Yeah. And there's no perfection, actually. Like, your healing journey is just unique. It's like a snowflake.
Correct. And I think I say the word perfect a lot, but I mean perfect for me, perfect for the
Mhm.
situation, not like
Mm.
this mythical created
Mhm.
by like some alien form perfection, but like there's perfection in the imperfect.
Absolutely. That is humanity in itself,
Yeah.
right? Like, that is the human experience. So, thank you for being such a wonderful guide and companion along my healing journey, Tessa. I love you so much, and I love this community that we have started to build with Uplift. And so thank you all for listening, and thank you for being a part of the collective healing.
Yes, thank you. And I hope you feel as safe with us as I feel with Sai.
Everyone should have that. All right. Y'all
Yes.
stay uplifted until next time. Bye bye.